Hey Girl Scouts, Miss Laura here with the South Carolina State Museum in Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you so much for choosing us and choosing this kit. We love this partnership that we have with Girl Scouts and can't wait to do more of them. This particular kit is the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles one, and you'll be taking a virtual tour of our third floor galleries with our education director, Tom Falvey, and then you'll get hands-on with me and Miss Liz, our planetarium manager, but also our resident physicist, as we learn how to make our very own balloon car and how it works. So get strapped in and get ready as we hear from Mr. Tom. Next, you're going to hear from me and Miss Liz as we teach you how to create your very own working balloon car. Wait till the very end too, because there's a tiny addendum we put on there that's very important for you and your badges. So get your materials ready, and here we go.
Hi, I'm Liz Klemek. I'm the planetary manager at the South Carolina State Museum.
And I'm Laura. I'm your education manager here at the South Carolina State Museum, and we are in Columbia, South Carolina. That's the center of the state for anybody that might not know. So I had a plan of coming in today, and I was going to make a balloon car, and then poof, all of a sudden, Miss Liz shows up. Miss Liz, what are you doing here today?
Hi, well, I was hoping we could talk a little bit about forces in motion.
That's perfect, because a balloon car is all about forces in motion. So before we get started with making our balloon car, which we will do a hands-on part of this in just a few moments. So Liz is going to talk to us a bit. We'll do the hands-on make the balloon car, and then Miss Liz will review for us a tiny bit as well. Before we get started with making our balloon car though, what do you think our students might need to know about one first?
Well, if you're making a balloon car, the first thing you should know is that little vehicle there is not going to move at all without some sort of force applied to it.
Okay, so it's just sitting here. Not going to do anything. So you're saying we have to apply a force, but what do you mean by force? What do you mean by that?
So a force is a push or a pull. And actually there are forces acting on us right now.
Like sitting in this chair right now?
Yes.
Like what? I'm not doing anything though.
It's hard to realize because you don't feel like there's a force on you, but actually gravity is acting on you all the time and constantly trying to pull you down to the center of the earth. And so it pulls us down so that we press on the floor, and in response the floor presses up on us.
The floor is pushing against us.
Yes.
Wait a minute, because when I think push, I think I'm like doing something like that. The floor doesn't seem to be doing that though.
So it perfectly balances that force of gravity, but for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So gravity pulls us down, and so we press onto the floor, and so the floor has to respond by pushing back up on us, and the two forces balance, and that's why we don't really feel anything. We're not moving up and down, because those two down and up forces are balancing.
I've heard that before, equal and opposite reaction. I feel like I've heard that before from a guy named Newton, right?
Yes. There was a physicist called Isaac Newton, and he came up with some laws of motion, and his third one says that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Exactly.
Yeah. So if that's his third law, what happened to laws 1 and 2 though?
So we kind of talked about the first law in passing, and so you might not realize it went by so fast. But basically, his first law has to do with inertia. So inertia is the tendency of masses to not want to change anything about their motion. I make a joke about how things in the universe tend to be lazy. So if they're still, they want to stay still. If they're moving along at a certain speed, they want to keep doing what they're doing, and they're not going to change anything about their motion unless there's a force applied to it.
Okay, so looking at our car again then, so it's going to stay here, and then if I apply a force, which we said could be a push, I'm just going to go boop and push my car.
Exactly. So you applied a force, which is a push or a pull, and you applied a push, and the car moves.
Now, you said though it was an equal and opposite reaction, that it'll keep on going. You said inertia will keep it going until it can't, right?
So technically that car should keep moving forever. You gave it a force, you applied a push.
Yeah.
And so that car should want to just keep moving and not change anything about its motion, but it did.
It did not. It stopped.
It stopped, right. So the only way it could have stopped is if another force acted on the car.
Okay.
And,
So we've got to push,
yep,
but I don't see any other force acting upon it, though. I'm not stopping it with my hand. It's just
Right.
kind of stopping.
so the other force that's there but you can't see is the force of friction.
We all know that one. We love that one in the classroom.
Yeah, so when there's two surfaces that are rubbing against each other, so you have wheels on the table, there is a friction force that's going to slow that car's motion. So you applied a force, but friction acts against it and eventually caused the car to stop. If there was no friction, if we could somehow magically get rid of that, that car would have just gone off into the sunset forever.
Very cool. So in the classroom, we all love this one because ever since we were really, really little, all of our teachers say, put your hands together and rub, 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 and your hands get warm, and that's friction. And we all know that one really well, I think. So Ms. Liz, talk to us about kinetic and potential energy.
Well, potential energy is when something has energy stored in it such that it could do work, and energy is energy of motion. So with our balloon here, if we inflate the balloon, now we've got an inflated balloon, and it has potential energy because energy is stored in there such that it could do work. Now, if we release the nozzle so that the air rushes out, now, if Miss Laura hadn't been holding onto the balloon, it would have zipped around the room, and it would have gained kinetic energy, which is energy of motion, and so it is doing an action.
So potential energy, a lot of people say it's when something has the potential to do work. So potential energy is when something could do the work, and then kinetic energy is when it actually performs an action. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, now seems like a good time to pause for a second and actually make our balloon cars. Is that cool?
Sounds great.
All right. So what everyone should have in your classroom is a bag like this. This is your bag of materials, okay? And we are going to make a car that looks like this. So let me go ahead and show you those materials that are going to come out of your bag. I'm going to pull this over. And we don't need the bag. You can hang on to that and recycle it or reuse it. We're going to be responsible with our materials. Okay, and you should have, one got stuck in my bag. You should have a basket that looks like this, 2 skewers, they look like that, 2 straws that look like that. You have some masking tape, we've given you about a yard, 4 wheels. Now your wheels are either blue, brown, or green. Some of these wheels all of these wheels are hand cut, which means you might have to get a pair of scissors and kind of adjust it a little bit. If your wheel is just a little too wonky, if we didn't get it perfectly circle, you might have to shave your wheels a little bit just to get them to roll better. And then of course you will need a balloon. So these are the materials that we have for our balloon car. Now, I like to start with the very, very simple part. I like to start with the chassis and making my wheels first. So this is the part that we're going to work on first, is this right here, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unroll a little bit of my masking tape, and you might need to get your nails in there to do it because it does split a little bit. So I'm going to undo a little bit of my masking tape, just a couple of inches. I'm going to stick that masking tape on one of my straws, like this, and I'm not going to wrap it around yet. I'm just going to leave it flat because what I'm going to do is roll my basket over and stick my straw at the end, okay? Now here's the thing, if you want to make your car kind of cattywampus, you can, that's totally fine. If you want to put yours on the open side of the basket, you can do that too. This is your car and you get to design it any way you want to. I put my straw out here towards the end, but you can also put your straws a little closer to the middle if you want. Anytime you do something with this activity, just keep in mind it is taped together. So if something isn't working, that is your opportunity to say, hold on, this isn't working, this is broken. I'm going to redo this part right here. And that's okay. You can always take it apart and redo it. I'm going to add more tape on it just to make sure that this wheel and axle system that we're creating doesn't accidentally fall off. I'm going to get a little bit more tape, just like that. And I'm going to tape it one more time. And after you're done with this side, you're going to move on to the other side. Now, if I am moving along a little too quickly for your classroom, feel free to pause the video and start it again and play again when everyone has caught up. Because now I'm just going to flip it over and I'm going to do the exact same thing all over again. A little bit of tape on this side. Put it on my basket, make sure it adheres well, and you want to make sure that your straws are parallel to each other. And that's something that we might talk about a little bit with Miss Liz. If our wheels and our axle isn't parallel, we start wobbling around a little bit and it won't actually go very well, and it creates more friction, which Miss Liz just told us is going to slow down our car and stop our car from moving. So there we go. So we have our straws in place at the ends. And again, you can put them on there any way you want. This is just my version of doing it, but it's your car and you can do it any way you want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my skewers and I'm going to put my skewers inside my straws, just like this. Whoop, like that. You'll notice that my skewers stick out further than the straw, and that is so that I have an easier time putting my wheels on. So once you get your skewers in there, you are not going to tape the skewers down. The skewers are meant to rotate and roll freely. Remember, we're making a wheel and axle system here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wheels, which are foam. They're just simple foam wheels. And if you look closely, you'll see a little dot in the middle of it. We have pre-poked some holes in there. So you just got to get them on there and wiggle it around a little bit. And eventually, there we go. It'll pop on just like that. And you might lose a little bit of extra, and that's okay. So you're going to do that for all 4 wheels. You're just going to line them up where that hole is, wiggle it around, and be careful to not accidentally hurt yourself. Don't stab yourself with a skewer. And you're going to put 1 wheel on each side of that skewer. So here's my 3rd one. There we go. And then here's my last one. There we go. So now I have a car that rolls. If I push it just like before and pull it, it is going to roll back and forth. Miss Liz, what are you thinking about our car so far? Looking pretty good?
I love it. The only thing is, in order to get that car to roll, you're going to have to keep pushing it because friction's going to keep slowing it down. And that can get tiring if you have to keep applying a push with your hand. So how might we make the car go another way? What's another way to apply a force?
That was getting old pretty quick pushing it. But we all have a balloon on board. We've all got balloons.
So how's a balloon going to help?
Well, I know that when I blow a balloon up, and when I let it go, it starts to do things. So if I blow this up, I have a bunch of air inside of it, and if I let it go, it flies around the room. So I know that there's some sort of like push and momentum and force going on there.
Yeah, so it's an excellent demonstration of Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you had that balloon filled with air, and when you open the nozzle, all that air rushed out and pushed on the balloon as it was coming out, and that made the balloon fly around the room.
So we're going to attempt to use that same kind of concept for our car. Now I'm going to show you a very simple way to put it on. You can do it any way you want. I've seen people take their tape and wrap it all the way around the balloon. I think there is a slightly easier way to do it, and I'm going to pull this as an example. So this is what I have pre-done just so you can see what the end result is. I take some tape and I put it at the very end or the nozzle of the balloon, just like that. Okay, so you can see it on both sides. I'll also do this overhead. So I just lay my balloon down like so. I take a little bit of tape, maybe a couple of inches, maybe 3 or 4 inches. You can do a little bit more. It doesn't hurt to have too much. So here, we'll do about 5 inches of tape. And I just lay the nozzle flat. And when I've got the nozzle flat, all I do is take my tape sticky side down and I put it on the nozzle like that. And it's going to stick there. You don't want to wrap it around because you want your nozzle to still be able to blow up. And then what I do at this point is I just kind of choose where on my car I want this balloon to go. You could certainly put it here towards the middle. You could put it further towards the end. Remember, it is tape, so if you get it in a location you don't really like, that's okay. You can always reposition it. A lot of times people have it a little askew, and that'll affect how your car moves because your car will start spinning in circles and things. So it's really up to you. I usually put mine a little bit further away from the end, so right around here. And I do that so that I can blow up my balloon a little bit better. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't love how close I got it to the end of the nozzle. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to put it back down on the table. And before I had it way up here on the nozzle, I'm going to move down a little bit just to give myself a little bit more area to blow the balloon up. Then I'm going to put it here towards the end, and notice I'm only leaving about maybe 2 centimeters of space right there. And I'm going to squish it and get it nice and taped in. So I've got my wheels here, I've got my balloon on. Let me tell you a couple of things that typically happen with folks when they're messing with and playing with their balloon cars. First thing that happens is typically people take their wheels and they squish them all the way in. But there's a slight problem when we squish our wheels in, right, Miss Liz?
There sure is. So remember that friction force we were talking about earlier? When you have two surfaces rubbing against each other, like in this case, those wheels rubbing against that straw like that, then your car's not going to go because of friction.
Yeah, the wheels won't move. The friction's keeping the wheels from moving. And then that's keeping the car from moving. So we need to make sure our wheels are not too close to the straws or the basket that we've got over here. So let's space those out again. Sometimes people ask us if you can have bigger wheels in the front or back. Sure, as long as the wheels in the front are both the same size and the wheel in the back are the same size, one set could be bigger than the other. I often get asked if they can be different widths apart. That is also totally possible. We can make these a little closer and those a little further apart. That's totally fine too. As long as none of your wheels are touching the straws and creating that friction, you're good to go. So if you can see, my back wheels are wider than my front ones, and that's absolutely fine. The other thing that tends to happen with our balloon car is that people want to take this balloon and they want to blow it up really, 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 really big. And they want the biggest balloon ever. The problem is that your basket and your car are not very heavy. It's pretty light. So there is such a thing as too much force and you end up knocking your balloon car over. So we want to make sure that it is actually not too terribly big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow up my balloon car a little bit. I'm going to switch cameras so you can see how far mine goes, and then we'll come right back. Okay? That's about all you need. Not too terribly big. I'm going to go to this next camera. I'm going to put it on the floor. Make sure my wheels are in a good spot, and whoop, uh-oh. Now let me show you what I did. So when I did it, I'm going to get real close to the camera, my nozzle got stuck inside like that, and none of the air could come out. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to take this off, and remember, it's taped, so it's totally fine. I'm going to take this off, and I'm just going to move that nozzle back a little bit, that way it doesn't get stuck again. So, and that's what happens when you're making things. Sometimes it's going to happen and we'll have a little mistake and then we just fix it later on. So now my nozzle has a little bit more room to move. It got stuck folded underneath and not enough air was coming out to let my car do anything. So let's try this again real quick. Whoop. So not too big. Okay, put it on the floor, and off we go. Whee. Yeah, there we go. All right, so my car successfully moved. You can see it right back there. So I was able to get it to move and realize and see what happened. I actually made a mistake and I had to move it around a little bit. Happens all the time, and you are going to have to adjust yours, and that's totally fine. Don't be afraid to take yours apart and kind of use some of that tape and fix it up a little bit. But my car went. It was pretty successful after the second try.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it demonstrated two of Newton's laws, where there's that third law: for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. That air rushing out the nozzle of the balloon pushed on the balloon, which was attached to the car, made the car go. And then we almost forgot about Newton's second law, which we've been talking about this whole time, really. And that is that if you apply a force onto a mass, like the car, there's going to be acceleration. So you apply a force, and it will cause that mass to change either its direction or its speed. And in this case, your speed went from nothing to a whole lot of something, because it zipped across the floor. So a force was applied and made the car go.
Awesome! Thank you so much, Miss Liz. That was a great explanation of what was happening to our balloon car. Again, if you needed to back up or stop or pause or rewind, feel free to watch this video over and over again. And we hope you had a great time. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye. Hey Girl Scouts, Miss Laura and Miss Liz here. We realized we forgot to mention a couple of things according to your badge books and wanted to make sure we get to those. So here are a couple of notes for you in this program. First of all, let's talk about your balloon car. Now, this balloon car that we've made is one that we provide to our students and our campers and our scouts when they come here to the museum. But Girl Scouts Mountains to Midlands is going to be providing yours, so your materials might be just a little bit different. The other thing to note is that the straw that you get might be really, really long, and that's okay. You can cut the straw down, the paper straw. You can cut it down to size. It actually doesn't need to be this big. We've had students do paper straws that are about this big. So it can be pretty tiny. Just make sure that you have enough to really secure onto your body and make sure your skewers extend out past your paper straw. But those are the things that might be a little bit different. Your wheels could be different too. So you might have some slightly different materials for your balloon car as it is being provided for by Girl Scouts Mountains to Midlands. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Liz. Girl Scouts, we hope you have fun and we hope you have a great day. Thanks from the South Carolina State Museum. All right, Girl Scouts, I hope you had fun with us here at the South Carolina State Museum. We can't thank Girl Scouts Mountains to Midlands enough for including us in this program. We hope to do far more of these in the future with other really cool hands-on activities. Thanks so much for being with us. We hope you had fun. Bye.